This is the story of a remarkable season in the history of Millwall Football Club, albeit one which may not be remembered with great affection by Lions fans. It was certainly an eventful 9 months in which players and supporters alike rode an emotional roller coaster. The season started brightly in the August sunshine at the Den. Manager Mick McCarthy had been busy over the summer. Andy Roberts was one of 8 departures during the close season, having joined Crystal Palace, with Bobby Bowery and Ricky Newman moving the other way. Other acquisitions included strikers Uwe Fuchs and Chris Malkin. Maurice Doyle, Mickey Bennett and Anton Rogan brought the total of new arrivals to 7 by the time the Lions kicked off against Grimsby on August the 13th. The first goal wasn't long in coming. Dave Savage felled in the box. Alex Ray, so deadly from the spot, stepping up to make it 1-0. Just past the half hour and Millwall were coasting. Van Blerk's free kick met by Keith Stevens at the far post, presenting Chris Malkin with the easiest of debut goals. It should have been plain sailing from that point, but slack marking allowed Steve Livingston to sneak in at the far post to pull a goal back for Grimsby, and there were a few sweaty palms amongst the Lions faithful before the final whistle. Final score, Millwall 2, Grimsby 1. The Lions' first away day was a trip to the Potteries for a hard-fought encounter with Port Vale. This Kerry Dixon strike proved the only goal of the game, and after 2 matches, Millwall were table toppers with maximum points. A perfect start suggested that Southend would be the next victims. Chris Malkin testing the keeper on this occasion. But United proved difficult to break down, and with clear-cut chances few and far between, the scoreline remained blank. Final score, Millwall 0, Southend 0. The visit to Elm Park 3 days later was to prove eventful. A robust challenge on Alex Ray by Dovcek then presented the Scot with his second goal of the season from the spot. It all got a bit heated before Ben Thatcher provided the perfect cross for Kerry Dixon to score the winner against his former club. 2-1 then, the final score. Dixon, meanwhile, could do no wrong as Millwall made it 3 wins out of 3 on the road. Thatcher and Fuchs did most of the hard work. Ray's was the slightly fortunate header which found the former England striker in the right place at the right time once more. Portsmouth did create chances of their own, but Casey Keller looked unbeatable. This last-minute save securing a 1-0 victory. Barnsley were the next visitors to the Den, and when Neil Redfern put the Yorkshireman in front, the Lions' unbeaten run was under threat. Millwall's luck in front of goal was definitely out. This Kerry Dixon effort just one of several narrowly off target. A home defeat by Mick McCarthy's old club, a bitter pill to swallow. Struggling Luton proved another handful 4 days later. Lions' old boy David Oldfield testing Casey Keller with this header after a good spell of pressure. Millwall rode their luck, and in the last minute substitute Chris Malkin beat the offside trap and produced the perfect finish. Final score, Millwall 1, Luton 0. A top-of-the-table clash at Carrow Road in mid-September saw Casey Keller still in prime form, this time denying Darren Eadie. Robert Fleck was just off target with this effort, but the Lions held on comfortably for a point. Final score, Norwich 0, Millwall 0. Everton were Millwall's opponents in the second round of the Coca-Cola Cup with the first leg at the Den. It was to prove a tight affair. This effort for the visitors disallowed for offside. Millwall gave as good as they got, and young Lee McRobert might have beaten a lesser keeper than Neville Southall with this effort. The Premiership side continued to show glimpses of their class. And once Amakati had found a way through, Keller had to be at his best to deny him. A McRobert free kick then caused panic in the Everton defence. And amid appeals for handball, Bobby Bowery saw this attempt flash narrowly wide. At the other end, there was a let-off for the Lions as Rideout's header hit the foot of a post. But Millwall kept pressing forward, and this skidder from Ricky Newman has Southall scrambling across his goal. Final score, Millwall 0, Everton 0. Back in the league, champions-elect Sunderland arrived at the Den in mid-table to take on the high-riding Lions. A slight nudge by Tony Witter on Phil Gray had the referee pointing to the spot. And after missing a spate of penalties, Sunderland finally found someone who could take one, Martin Scott giving his side the lead. In the second half, Millwall began to assert some authority, and after Ben Thatcher launched a high ball into the box, Hooks and Malkin combined to set up Keith Stevens for a rare equaliser. All the good work was undone, however, when this rash challenge from McRobert gave Sunderland a free kick. Michael Gray was the man to take it, and everybody watched as he curled the winner direct into the far corner. Final score, Millwall 1, Sunderland 2. The TV cameras were at the baseball ground for Millwall's visit to Derby. Good work by Jason Van Blurk set up Alex Ray for the opening goal with this daisy cutter. Celebrations all round, and yes, let's see that one again in slow motion. Van Blurk gets the better of the fullback, finds Alex Ray. Thank you very much indeed. Sadly, the Lions' defence, which had looked so solid in the early weeks of the season, was beginning to creak. Ron Willems takes full advantage. Now this is how to take a free kick. Kingsley Black, making his debut on loan from Nottingham Forest, produces the perfect bender round the wall. Here it goes. Pick that one out, Steve Sutton. 2-1 to the Lions. Unfortunately, that goal didn't prove to be the winner. Van der Laan popped up with his imitation of Ray's earlier strike to level things up at 2-2. Now for one of the high spots of the season, the Coca-Cola Cup second round, second leg at Goodison Park. Things didn't get off to the best of starts though, when Van Blurk sent Anders Limpar flying in the box and instantly regretted it. Andy Hinchcliffe duly administered punishment from the spot. Up to that point, Millwall had been the better side, but confidence restored, Everton began to threaten. Route 1 was to prove the Lions' undoing on this occasion, and Graham Stewart was on hand to provide the finish. 2-0. Injury to Ben Thatcher had forced Mick McCarthy to bring on a substitute, and he chose to unleash young Scott Taylor. It proved an inspired move. Alex Ray's pass gives Fuchs something to fight for, and when it breaks to Taylor, he fires home his first goal for the club. Big Nev's clearly not happy about that one, but he's got no hope of stopping this. Super sub Scott's beginning to get a taste for this, and when Earl Barrett brings him down, the Lions are right back in the tie. Penalty king Alex Ray completes the job. 2-2. So to extra time. Dave Savage picks the ball up in the centre circle and finds Kerry Dixon on the right. He knocks it inside to Taylor. Pick that one out, Ned. Everton 2, Millwall 3. Let's see this one again. Dixon finds Taylor, and this is a finish of true quality. Meanwhile, Taylor's at it again. A neat ball for Dave Savage, and it's a case of anything you can do, I can do better. The celebrations begin on the bench and on the terraces as the Lions take another Premiership scalp. Here's that Savage goal again. He turns the defender inside and out before giving Southall no chance. There is that final whistle. Final score, Everton 2, Millwall 4. Back to league action at Watford, and the Lions are still looking invincible away from home. This game appeared to be heading for a draw until Alex Ray unleashed another of his specials. The keeper's sack of Spud's impression did provide a bit of a helping hand though. Final score, Watford 0, Millwall 1. At the Den, the Lions continued to look less impressive, and this goal by Tranmere's Ian Moore was out of the Roy of the Rovers annual. A quick free kick by Bobby Bowery was to lead to an equaliser. Chris Malkin flattened by a passing JCB, and the referee points to the spot. Pat Nevin, meanwhile, voices his disapproval and receives the yellow card. With Alex Ray off the field, it falls to Kerry Dixon to convert the penalty. Another free kick, and Millwall are ahead. It's the prolific Rhino once more. He doesn't miss those, and that's 2 already this season. With the points seemingly in the bag, and the time almost up, Tony Witter suffers a rush of blood. Although replays suggest he may have played the ball here. Gary Bennett isn't bothered. He fires home the unlikely equaliser. Final score, Millwall 2, Tranmere 2. If the win at Everton was a high spot, this one wasn't far behind. 1967 was the last time the Lions beat local rivals Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, so this was a sweet victory, Chris Malkin giving them the lead. Although Dean Gordon produced this flashing equaliser, Uwe Fuchs bundled in the winner from a corner, his first goal for the club. Final score, Palace 1, Millwall 2. Having beaten Everton in the previous round, hopes were high that Sheffield Wednesday would go the same way in round 3 of the Coca-Cola Cup. Wednesday had other ideas, however, and Mark Pembridge fired the visitors in front from Whittingham's pass. In the second half, Whittingham completed the job himself. Final score, Millwall 0, Sheffield Wednesday 2. Millwall's ambitions to join the likes of Everton and Sheffield Wednesday in the Premiership still look realistic, as this fine individual goal from Chris Malkin gave them the lead against West Bromwich Albion. Andy Hunt's header briefly brought things back down to earth. But with the Albion defence unable to clear this attack, Taylor and Van Blurk set up Fuchs for the winner. Final score, Millwall 2, West Bromwich Albion 1. This top-of-the-table clash at Birmingham in early November was destined to be remembered for all the wrong reasons. On the field, though, it was a cracking game. This Steve Castle header giving the Blues a first-half lead. After the break, a resurgent Millwall took over and Kerry Dixon equalised from Van Blurk's corner with a little help from Chris Malkin. Another Van Blurk corner brought Millwall second as Alex Ray, with the help of a couple of deflections, caught the Birmingham defence sleeping. That should have been it and 3 more points, but once again Millwall shot themselves in the foot in the dying seconds. As the cross comes in, Witter and Keller fail to communicate. Ken Charley helps himself to the equaliser. Final score, Birmingham 2, Millwall 2. Back at the Den, and Chris Malkin opens the scoring early on against Ipswich Town, albeit at the second attempt. Ipswich, though, levelled things up as the Millwall rearguard again say, "After you, Claude," and Paul Mason accepts the invitation. The blushes are spared, though, when Tony Witter comes up from the back to thump home a free kick. Final score, Millwall 2, Ipswich 1. Huddersfield should have been dispatched in similar fashion the following week, but Jason Van Blurk produced a real defender's finish from this excellent chance. The visitors might even have sneaked in front themselves, but for this point-blank stop by Casey Keller from Andy Booth. At the other end, the Huddersfield keeper was in equally fine form, as Uwe Fuchs was left to testify. Final score, Millwall 0, Huddersfield 0. Were Millwall to avoid defeat in their next 2 away games, they would equal a club record, 9 unbeaten since the start of the season. Things didn't get off to a great start at Oldham, though, where Sean McCarthy was given at least 3 stabs at putting his side in front. When Stuart Barlow made it 2-0 midway through the second half, the game looked up for the Lions. But then came an amazing last 5 minutes as Dave Savage found the head of Alex Ray, who reduced the arrears. Then with Millwall's last attack of the game, the ball was worked out to Ben Thatcher on the left. His cross invited Chris Malkin to equalise at the far post. Final score, Oldham 2, Millwall 2. Sadly, Nigel Gleghorn's goal at Stoke gave them a 1-0 victory and the record was denied. Christmas came early at the Den for Watford a week later when Casey Keller presented Phillips with this opening goal. As another Millwall attack foundered, Phillips was at it again not long afterwards, and things were beginning to look embarrassing. Chris Malkin was on hand to at least restore some sanity to the proceedings. A sweet turn and a low shot, but was that the same sack of Spuds? Too little too late though for Millwall. Final score, Lions 1, Hornets 2. December, it must be said, was not a good month. Charlton were at the Den in the snow 4 days later. Kim Grant bundled home a goal for them in the first half, and then did the same again in the second. A 2-0 defeat at home to the Addicts. Now that is embarrassing. If that was bad, worse was to follow at Roker Park. Anton Rogan making his mark early on Phil Gray. Not much doubt about that one, I'm afraid. And up steps Martin Scott to score from the spot again. A through ball to Craig Russell, and it's 2-0. into the second half. And there's Phil Gray, number 3. Was that the same goal? Afraid not. That was Russell, 4-0. Phil Gray involved again, and it's that man Russell, number 5. As the game drifts into the dying seconds, it's Russell against Thatcher. Russell's 4th, Sunderland's 6th. By now the rot had set in, and in spite of a much improved performance against Derby, there was a certain inevitability about the result after this goal from Sturridge. Things could only improve after Christmas, but not immediately, as Steve Bull puts Wolves ahead on Boxing Day. The Lions rallied in the second half, and Chris Malkin's header was scant reward for a performance which merited all 3 points. But at least the rot had been stopped. Final score, Wolves 1, Millwall 1. Leicester's visit to the Den on New Year's Day was greeted with a customary goal start. Steve Corica, the lucky recipient on this occasion. At least the fight had returned to the Lions' ranks though, and Chris Malkin was scoring goals again. This equaliser coming from Bobby Bowery's cross. Final score, Millwall 1, Leicester City 1. Oxford United were Millwall's third-round opponents in the FA Cup, providing a chance to restore lost confidence, perhaps. On the other hand, forgot about that goal start, didn't we? Millwall's equaliser was a well-worked goal, started and finished by Alex Ray. Can you sense another Oxford goal coming? Yep. 2-1. Moody the scorer. I know how he feels. For the neutral, this was becoming some cup tie. Watch as Taylor plays the ball to Thatcher, and as Ben gets himself into the tightest of positions before producing an impossible cross. Chris Malkin, as ever, does the rest. 2-2. Now Millwall had the bit between their teeth, and with Alex Ray in sparkling form, he's surely the man to produce a spectacular winner. Another goal of the season contender from Alex, and it's Millwall 3, Oxford 2. You know the script by now. Dying seconds, 3-2 up. Game surely there for the taking. Bizarre late goal. Mike Ford direct from a corner, and it's a replay at the Manor. Final score, Millwall 3, Oxford 3. Making their debuts for the Lions against Port Vale are Russian internationals Sergei Yuran and Vasily Kulkov. Vale clearly haven't read the script though, and Martin Foyle puts the visitors in front. Yuran makes his presence felt with this challenge on the keeper, which allows Alex Ray to equalise. Tony Naylor has the final word, disappointing Millwall's biggest crowd of the season. Final score, Millwall 1, Port Vale 2. With Casey Keller away on international duty, Tim Carter faces his old club Oxford in the FA Cup replay. I wonder if he's ever seen Stuart Massey do that in training. Having been ineligible for the 2 cup ties, the Russians are back at Grimsby. For the 10th game in succession, the opposition take the lead. Alex Ray is on the spot in the second half, however, and he finishes the job to give Millwall their first win in 13 games. Final score, Grimsby 1, Millwall 2. The Lions' home game against Portsmouth is one of very few to beat the weather, and when Sergei Yuran's shot is parried into the path of Jason Van Blurk, it all looks worthwhile. It looks just as good from behind the goal too, as Jason gets his first goal of the season. This dreadful tackle on James Conner sees Pompey reduced to 10 men. A frank and open exchange of views ensues before the referee takes action. With a man advantage, that should have been that. But from Millwall's throw, Portsmouth have scored, thanks to a wonder strike from Dion Burton. Final score, Millwall 1, Portsmouth 1. So to Roots Hall, and this was to be Mick McCarthy's last game in charge. Afterwards, he informed his players that he would be leaving to become manager of the Republic of Ireland. It wasn't the perfect send-off for McCarthy, as first McNally and then Regis put further holes into the sinking ship. Witter's mistake and the much-travelled striker scores the second for Southend. Final score, Southend 2, Millwall 0. New manager Jimmy Nicholl had been installed by the following weekend, and he was in the stand to see Bobby Bowery open the scoring with this goal for Reading. Bowery's former teammate Ricky Newman was on hand to reduce his embarrassment with this goal of the season contender. Final score, Millwall 1, Reading 1. Nicholl took charge of the team for the first time at Sheffield United. This goal line clearance by Ben Thatcher prevented his side from going behind early on. At the other end, Sergei Yuran was inches away from giving Millwall the lead. But Carl Viet finally put United in front on the stroke of half-time. Don Hutchinson made it 2-0 in the second half with the easiest of chances, and it wasn't a great start for the new manager. Sheffield United 2, Millwall 0. "17-year-old Lucas Neal made his debut at Luton as Nicholl rung the changes, and they were forced to battle for everything against the struggling Hatters. bad challenge on Bobby Bowery, and the referee is forced to take action. A second bookable offence, and Luton are down to 10 men. The man advantage should have given Millwall the edge. But this refereeing decision with 2 minutes left cost them the point, which ultimately could have meant First Division survival. The spot kick duly dispatched by Tony Thorpe, but Witter's tackle was both outside the area and legal, surely a case of rough justice. Suddenly, the spectre of relegation was beginning to appear, and the game against Norwich, who were likewise free-falling, took on greater significance. After Uren attempted to walk the ball into the net, Bowery made amends for his aberration against Reading by giving his side the lead. Uwe Fuchs bundled in number 2 from a corner. At the other end, further bizarre defending allowed Mike Milligan to pull one back for the Canaries and set up a nail-biting finish, which included almost 10 minutes injury time. Final score, Millwall 2, Norwich City 1. The Foreign Legion set up the promise of a fruitful night at Barnsley, Uran feeding Fuchs for a 1-0 half-time lead. With the ball lost in midfield, Payton equalised for Barnsley. And only a magnificent save from Watson denied the resurgent Tony Dolby. In the dying seconds, with a point seemingly safe, first Liddell and then Payton truly buried the Lions' hopes. Final score, Barnsley 3, Millwall 1. The fact that the performance against Wolves the following week was Millwall's best performance of the season at home so far tells its own story. Steve Bull took one of the few chances which came his way. At the other end, the Lions missed theirs, or found Stoll the immovable object in the Wolves' goal. It all proved too much for Sergei Uran, who was about to get the bath to himself following this challenge. The Russian eventually sees red, and the Lions are pointless once again. Jimmy Nichols' men gave another fine performance at Charlton, but sadly, the outcome was the same. A sucker punch from Bowyer early in the first half, followed by one from Leeburn late in the second. Final score, Charlton 2, Millwall 0. The visit of Sheffield United to the Den had now taken on the air of a relegation battle, almost unthinkable for a side that had been top of the table in early December. Millwall's luck appeared to be out once more as Alex Ray hit a post with this fine effort. But in the second half, Uwe Fuchs used his battling qualities to good effect to force home the winner. Final score, Millwall 1, Sheffield United 0. Having conceded an early goal to Brian Carey at Leicester, the Lions were again rocked back on their heels. Once more though, Alex Ray was the man to produce something special. After feeding Dolby on the left, Ray takes up position and with the aid of a deflection gives the keeper no chance. Sadly, just as Millwall were getting back into the game, the other Scott Taylor killed them off. Final score at Filbert Street, Leicester 2, Millwall 1. If anything was needed to galvanise the team now, a derby against Palace should have done the trick. Indeed it did, and when Mickey Weir on loan from Hibernian was felled by Taylor in the box, Millwall should have been on their way. But Nigel Martin saved Ray's penalty, and the Lions had nothing to show for a half they'd dominated. After the break, it was that old sucker punch again. Nadar dancing down the left, and his cross finished at the far post by Hopkins. With Millwall down to 10 men, Van Blurk having been sent off, Kenny Brown rubbed salt into the wounds. Another penalty as Malkin was shoved off the ball provided a lifeline. This time Alex Ray made no mistake, although squaring up to Nigel Martin afterwards might just count as one. As Millwall pressed for an equaliser, gaps inevitably appeared at the back, and Nadar profited to make it 3-1. When your luck's out, it's definitely out. Nadar credited with the fourth goal. Surely, though, this one goes down as a header by Mr. A. Mole. Final score, Millwall 1, Palace 4. It was essential for the Lions to bounce back immediately, and things looked promising when Sergei Yuran got his first goal for the club to put them 1-0 up at Tranmere. The equaliser from Rodgers, though, was a little bit special. And when Aldridge made it 2-1 from the spot, a share of the spoils would have been a good result. Malkin's header against his old club did the trick. Final score, Tranmere 2, Millwall 2. If you're looking for turning points which might have saved the Lions from relegation, this is certainly another one. Tony Dolby bearing down on goal, clearly upended, and nothing given by the referee. Out of picture, he reacts to the offender. All hell breaks loose, and Dolby is shortly to be sent off. Ten-man Millwall hold on for almost half an hour. Then 2 minutes from time, they lose concentration, and Richard Sneakers punishes them. Final score, West Bromwich Albion 1, Millwall 0. The home game against Birmingham had now taken on greater significance, and Bowery's early goal settled the nerves. A good move down the left sees Van Blurk producing the perfect cross for Chris Malkin to wrap it up. But this is Millwall's first league win by a 2-goal margin all season. Final score, Millwall 2, Birmingham City 0. The Birmingham result was to prove only a brief respite. The Lions were soon behind to a Jepson penalty at Huddersfield. Second half goals from Edwards and Booth made it a depressing trip back from Yorkshire as the Lions went down by 3 goals to 0. This was the big one, the real relegation 6-pointer, and with the Millwall back 4 all out through suspension. In a rare Oldham attack, Tony Witter is again penalised for a challenge inside the area. Richardson scores from the spot with Oldham's only shot on target, and they hold on for a 1-0 win. Now the Lions are in trouble. With Stoke pressing for a playoff place, they were far from ideal opponents for a jittery Millwall side now low on confidence and needing to win their last home game to ensure First Division survival. An untimely slip by James Conner lets Mike Sherrin in for the first goal. When Sturridge makes it 2 for Stoke with the game barely half an hour old, the writing is on the wall. Before Millwall can get back into the game, Sturridge is through again early in the second half. Keller brings him down, and the referee points to the spot. Sturridge makes it 3-0, and it looks all over. But there's still life in the old Lions yet. Chris Malkin goes down in the box, and Alex Ray will step up to make it 3-1. With still time left on the clock, Savage, Weir and Newman conspire to find Ray once more. Ray shakes off the attendance of the defender, and it's 3-2. Stevens also went close at the death, but it just wasn't enough. And so to the final chapter at Ipswich. Millwall must win to be sure of a place in the First Division next season. Alex Ray is suspended following his sending off against Oldham. After Marshall misses a good first half chance, the post does its bit to help the Lions. A clearance by Ben Thatcher, and suddenly Lucas Neal is away. Sadly, he just doesn't have the legs to get clear of the defence. Worried faces on the bench tell their own story. The news from Huddersfield is not good. Portsmouth have won at the McAlpine Stadium. A 0-0 draw at Ipswich is not good enough to keep Millwall in the First Division as they slide into the relegation zone for the first time at 10-5 on the last day of the season. The campaign that had promised so much had ended in failure.